Now I request the technical team to play the University Tarana. Thanks to our Vice Chancellor for composing this wonderful tarana for the MANUU. So before proceeding further, we take an opportunity to welcome and honor our esteemed guests on the dais. We extend our heartfelt appreciation by presenting them with the mementos and bouquets as a token of our gratitude for their valuable presence and participation in the seminar. I request Sadaf, MA student, to bring memento and bouquet, and I humbly request our OSD madam, Professor Shubhta Shahin madam, to present the memento and bouquet to our uh, key speaker, Professor Kancha Ile. Thank you, ma'am. I request Mujtaba, MA student, to bring a bouquet to our guest of honor, Professor Mujtaba Hussain Saab, and I request again OSD madam to present this bouquet to our guest of honor, Professor Mujtaba Hussain. Thank you, ma'am, again. Now I request Rufaya, MA student, to bring the memento and bouquet, and I request Dr. K.M. Ziauddin, Head Department of Sociology, to present memento and bouquet to our OSD, Madam Professor Shurukta Shahi. I request Mujtaba MA student to bring bouquet and memento, and I, I request them to I request OSD Madam to present bouquet and memento to our head of the department, Dr. K.M. Ziauddin, sir. Friends, Friends, as you all know that over the past 2 days of the seminar, the discussions and deliberations, both in the preliminary and technical sessions, have explored the diverse dimension within the Muslim studies. These sessions were profoundly engaging, thought-provoking, and offered deeper insights into the theme and sub-themes of the seminar. Now I invite Dr. Sayed Miu, sir, the Assistant Professor, Department of Sociology, and the coordinator of the seminar, to present the brief report of this 2 days national seminar. Very good afternoon, everyone. Our respected dignitaries on the dais, distinguished guests, colleagues, friends, and dear students. I'm very pleased to present a brief report of the Student National Seminar in commemoration of Professor Imtiaz Ahmad on the theme Contextualizing Muslim Studies in Indian Sociology, organized by the Department of Sociology, MANUU Hyderabad. In these 2 days of engaging deliberations, besides inaugural and valedictory, we had one special lecture that was given by Professor Vivek Kumar,
we had 2 plenary sessions and 5 technical sessions in total. Due to huge response and given paucity of time, we had to conduct 2 sessions in parallel, and also 1 session we had to conduct in online mode. Of course, we did not want to miss on certain good papers we received from across the country. Some presenters expressed inability to come and join us uh, offline. We received a total of 58 abstract. After a couple of rejections and few withdrawals, we had a total of 40 presentations. That total includes plenaries and or invited papers and papers in technical sessions. Let me put this on record. Obviously, we received an amazing response. People from prominent institutions of the country, uh, like uh, like HCU, DU, Jamia Millia Islamia, TIS, EMU, IITs, central and state universities, colleges, premium research institutions, colleges participated in this conference. In this valedictory, we have one, our guest will be joining us from Oxford. Yeah. So, well, literally, it is an international seminar, though we are calling it a national seminar. Yeah. So, on day one, we had an inaugural session. Of course, that session was started with the University Tarana after formal welcome and honoring of the guest by Professor P.H. Muhammad, by P.H. Muhammad. Uh, Dr. Kames Ziauddin, the seminar convener, introduced the theme of the seminar and emphasized the need for understanding historical context, cultural, political dynamics, and proper and appropriate conceptual framework for studying Indian Muslims. During inaugural, we also released Souvenir, the book of abstract of this conference, and we also released one book written by Professor Kim Ziauddin on the theme of sociology of health in a Dalit community. Professor Hilal Ahmed from CSDS delivered the keynote address during the inaugural. He highlighted the Professor Imtiaz Ahmed's contribution to Indian sociology and critically examines Imtiaz Ahmed's understanding of lived Islam. The chief guest, Professor Arvind Ansari from Jamia Millia Islamia, introduced a brief biography and academic journey of Professor Imtiaz Ahmed and made a plea that Professor Imtiaz's legacy need to be institutionalized. In his presidential remarks, Honorable Vice Chancellor Professor Sayyid Anul Hassan shared his memories with Professor Imtiaz Ahmed and also suggested certain issues and concerns that may be deliberated during the conference. Uh, Dr. Kim Ziauddin presented a vote of thanks, and then we concluded inaugural session. On this day one, just after the inaugural session, we had first Professor Imtiaz Ahmed Memorial Lecture that was delivered by Professor Vivek Kumar of Jawaharlal Nehru University, Delhi. Professor Vivek Kumar discussed the biography, academic engagement, and seriousness of the scholarly work of Professor Imtiaz Ahmed. Professor Vivek remarked that Professor Imtiaz challenged the notion of Muslim community being considered as a monolithic and homogeneous. Professor Imtiaz also problematized the theoretical unification and singularity of conceptual framework with which often the studies of Muslims are dealt with. After this lecture, we had plenary session, and we had total three presentations in this plenary. That plenary session was on the theme mapping trajectories of social stratification in India. That was chaired by Professor Mustafa Hussain, a retired professor of sociology from Patna University, who is also now sitting here on the dais. The first speaker, Professor G. Nagaraju, argued that the nature of stratification among Muslims in India was also studied based on Hindu model of caste system, which is rooted in the notion of Varna system. He concluded by referring to the necessity of having multiple dimensions and specific epistemologies related to the study of social stratification among Muslims in India. The second speaker, Professor Arvind Ansari, began her lecture by discussing the contributions made by Professor Imtiaz Ahmed and delineated the concepts put forward by Professor Imtiaz Ahmed, like that of categorization of Muslims into different categories like Ashraf, Ajlaf, and Arjals, and also the terms like Ashrafization, and also and the need of interpreting the lived Islam while studying social stratification and hierarchy among Muslim communities. The last speaker, Professor Ranu Jain, talked about the deteriorating representation of Muslim studies in a discipline like sociology. She portrayed a dismal picture of current status of Muslim studies in Indian academia, and she gave various examples of how and in what proportion the studies about Muslims are published in journals. She took a very specific example of sociological bulletin. That is a one good journal in sociological domain. She referred to the new normal practice where the voices of community are suppressed and any protesting voices are muted by those who are in power. She concluded her lecture by stressing on the need to develop a space for secularity, inclusion, and syncretic assimilation. After this plenary, we had a technical session one. This technical session was on the theme problems and challenges in education and gender gap. That was chaired by Professor Shahida Murtaja. In this session, a total 5 papers were presented. The issues were covered were prevalence of exclusionary practices in the field of medicine, gender disparities in education, reading the NEP from minority perspective, the questions of minority identity, dispersonalization, and violence. Modernization and women empowerment were other issues. Those were discussed in this technical session one. That was followed by technical session two after a break. This technical session was on the based on theme identity, politics, and Muslims in contemporary India. It was a comprehensive exploration of the multifaceted dynamics shaping Muslim identities across different regions of the country. This session was chaired by Professor P.H. Muhammad. The session has engaging deliberations on the pressing issues like caste politics among Muslims, complex nexus between caste, gender, and minorities, cultural diversity, and Islamophobia and Muslim empowerment. And also, we had deliberation in this session on the challenges faced by Muslims in various geographies, such as in Telangana and other states. This session also discussed the social stratification among Muslims in southern India, taking an example of Andhra Pradesh. Lastly, the chair in his remark highlighted the need for further research on government policies aimed at personal societal betterment, particularly regarding the reservation issues. Overall, the session provided valuable insights into the complexities of Muslim identity politics, highlighting the importance of interdisciplinary approaches in understanding the contemporary issues. Uh, on the same day, we had technical session three. This session on the theme reflection on culture, religion, and region, conducted online, that was chaired by Dr. Vivekananda Nayak, and this session was coordinated by Dr. Malik Rehan Ahmed. The deliberation in this session highlighted the different dimensions uh, of exclusion among Muslims in terms of culture, region, religion. It also discussed the issues of parda, epistemic violence, and media projections of Muslim women. Globalization and advanced technologies were also the issues that were discussed in this session. On day two, that is today, we started the day with plenary two session. It was based on the theme studying Muslims in Indian society. This session was chaired by Professor Arvind Ansari from Jamia Islamia. It has 4 presentations in total. Dr. Arshad Amanullah from Prime Minister Museum and Library, Delhi, highlighted the Muslim discourse in the Urdu newspapers, which is dominated by Ashraf Muslims. He discussed meaning and concepts of habitus and how these issues are interplaying with the identity of Muslims and how social capital is uh, pitching in terms of representation and exclusion of certain caste groups in media representation. Dr. Shazia Farooq Fazli, the another speaker of this session from Aligarh Muslim University, engaged with the work-life balance of Muslim women paramedical staff and examined the job-related challenges of the paramedical women staff in Aligarh. Another speaker, Dr. Raisa Begum Usmani from NMIMS Hyderabad, examines the rule and law of Begums of Bhopal through feminist perspectives. Professor Asim Prakash, the another speaker in this panel from TES, he highlighted the issues of lived reality and Muslim youth. He discussed the challenges among Muslim youth and their aspirations with the help of biographies of restaurant and bakery workers in Hyderabad. And he draws linkages between state market and civil society vis-a-vis empowerment of Muslims in the state. We had technical session 4 after that, and this session was on the theme of religion, digitalization, and society. This session was chaired by Professor Najullah, Head Department of Public Administration, MANUU. This session has a total of 7 presentations on the themes such as media portrayal of Muslims, technology, religion, and society, intersectionality in terms of modernity and faith in digitalized spaces, food traditions and health practices in Muslims of Kerala was another interesting paper in this session. Faith as a social capital, technology, and educational practices were other issues. Those were deliberated in this session. We had last session in this day, prior to this valedictory session, technical session 5. This session on the theme identity, segregation, and exclusionary practices was chaired by Professor Muhammad Zahid Raza. The session had a total of 6 presentations. These presentations deliberated on the issues of identity formation, intergroup inequalities, role of social and cultural capital in shaping educational aspirations of Muslims. It also discussed the contributions of various Muslim reformers and scholars like Iqbal and Ali Shariat. Caste among Islam in Kerala was another paper that was discussed. The issues of ghettoization among Muslims was also discussed in this session. Lastly, in terms of the key takeaways from this seminar, as I could understand and conclude it based on my reading of the reports that was given by reporters to me, and then I think that the issues were the contemporary issues were deliberated very interestingly, very critically examined by the scholars. The need of studying Muslim communities heterogeneous and diverse social world with the help of micro level lived realities was emphasized, and also there was a felt need was expressed in terms of searching and applying alternative methodologies, epistemologies, to understand the various dimensions of exclusion among Muslims. The issues of countering colonial practices both at global and local level was also highlighted in certain papers. And also it was deliberated that, I mean, it has come out that with the help of intersectionality and alternative methodological framework, we need to understand the impact of the new digital technologies and violence in workplace and everyday social world. And also, it was commonly reflected that there is a dire need to understand the intersection between market, state, civil society, vis-a-vis the state of Muslims in India and the world. With this, I, uh, I close this. I close this report, and I thank the reporters who contributed in the development of this the whole report. I name them: Mubashiruddin Faruqi, Mohammad Fazil, Najma Chaudhry, Bilal Bashir, Ibn Hassan, Saifuddin Soz, Hina Hassan, Osama Akram, Dr. Afsana Mohammad Altaf, Musarat Abdullah, Sada Fatima, and Asim Sohel. These reporters contributed in the development of this report. I thank them wholeheartedly. Thank you so much.
So, thank you, Dr. Said Musa, for presenting such an exhaustive and extensive seminar report to our guests and audience. Now, as we are eagerly waiting to listen Professor Kancha Ilaya for his validatory address, let me take this opportunity to briefly introduce Professor Kancha Ilaya, today's keynote speaker. Professor Kancha Ilaya was born and brought up in state of Telangana. He is a prominent Indian political theorist, writer, and Dalit rights activist. His academic and intellectual contributions have significantly influenced discourses on caste, religion, and social justice in India. Professor Kancha Ilaya received his MA, MPhil, and PhD in political science from Osmania University. In his PhD, he explored the political dimensions of Buddhism, which resulted in publication of God as a political philosopher, Buddha's challenge to Brahmanism. This work largely covers the intersections of caste, religion, and politics, challenging the caste supremacy. Professor Kancha Ilaya's ideas and activism are deeply rooted in the inhalation of caste. In his best known book, Why I Am Not a Hindu, a Shudra critique of Hindutva philosophy, culture, and political economy, he critiques Hindutva and advocates for social equality. His prolific literary contributions include impactful publications such as Buffalo Nationalism, Post Hindu India, and Untouchable God. In these works, he touches upon the various aspects of caste dynamics, socio spiritual revolutions, and presents critique to these prevailing ideologies. Apart from his activism, Professor Kancha Ilaya has held significant academic positions, including Director of the Center for Study of Social Exclusion and Inclusive Policy at Maulana Azad National Urdu University. He has also served as the head of the Department of Political Science at Osmania University. With this brief introduction, I request Professor Kancha Ilaya to please come to deliver the valedictory address.
Professor Shogupta Shaheen, OSD of the university, and my friend Zia, who is the Department of Sociology, and Professor Hussain from Patna University and friends. At the outset, I'm really thankful for Ziauddin to have invited me here for an international seminar on contextualizing Muslim studies in Indian sociology. Well, when we talk of contextualizing in the present national situation, what do we mean by contextualizing now? How do scholars, not just Muslim scholars, but the entire academic scholarship, social scholarship, even political scholarship, to look at the Muslim situation as of now, as it exists, and where will it go? Now, if you look at the history of Muslim society, during the Muslim rule, it has a particular formation from almost 10th century to arrival of East India Company, and thereafter the British taking over the entire Indian state apparatus, if not the social apparatus, because the colonial system has not taken control of the social apparatus. It took control of state apparatus mainly, which definitely impacted the Muslim earlier ruling class, the Jamindars, and the Jagirdars, even in Hyderabad state, like where large amount of land was also in the hands of Muslim Jamindars. Around Hyderabad, even now, there is a lot of legal litigation around that land. Now, that period has a particular relationship of the Muslim society with the Indian society. Now, when we talk of Indian society, there is a altogether different meaning than what we talk of the Muslim society. Or when we talk of Hindu society, there is altogether different history than what we talk of Muslim society as a religiously identifiable social force. Now, after the freedom struggle, from 1947 to perhaps 1999, if not the year of Babri Masjid demolition, the Muslim intellectuals, if I can broadly characterize either from Aligarh Muslim University or Jamia Islamia or in other universities, even Osmania, where I was a student and teacher for quite a long time. Now, their concern appears to be broadly in terms of studies how to negotiate with secularism, with the idea of secular state and constitutionalism that was brought in after the adoption of particularly the Ambedkarite constitution. Because the Muslim scholarship, as much as the Brahmin scholarship, is not used to the idea of secularism at all. There is no secular life, both for Brahmins and Muslim scholars also. Secular life is different. But there was secular life in India, which neither Muslim scholars nor Brahmin scholars studied. Now, what is that? That secular life was in the production, in the masses, and historically in a society called Shudra Society of India, the Shudras. Now, when I'm using the word Shudra, I'm using that including the Dalits, untouchable, what we call within the village paradigm. That does not include scheduled tribes because they're outside what we in modern times scholars call civil society. They were in the tribal, forest, natural economy by and large, even in agriculture terms. Now, what is the Shudra society? Did Muslim scholars look at it at any point of time in history? I'm sure Muslim scholars understood, studied what they call Hindu society, but Hindu society in essentially was nothing but Brahmin, Baniya, in North India, Kayasthas, Khatris, and Vaishya society. It's about roughly less than 10%. The Bihar caste census have brought out they hardly constitute 7% in Bihar, right? So Muslim scholars looked at that. Muslim scholars, I have not seen any book written by a Muslim scholar after Al-Biruni. Al-Biruni is Al-Hind, talking about the Shudras of India. But recently, one publisher sent me a book written by a Muslim scholar on Shudras, very philosophical book from Aligarh Muslim University. I brought this. It's called The Shudra, a philosophical narrative of Indian superhumanism. And it is written by Jalalul Haq. Earlier, it was a small publication by a research organization, but now Navayana has brought it out. So now Jalalul Haq has gone in depth into the philosophical realm of the Shudras historically, right from Vedic period to later, including the text. Now, okay, what happened was from 1947 to Ambedkar Constitution, Muslim scholars never engaged with Ambedkar. Am I right?
Oh, sir. Continue.
Yeah. Till 1990, when we were also not engaged with Ambedkar, till the Mandal movement. And when Thorat, myself, and many of us, I remember when Thorat organized a seminar in JNU in 1992, there were hardly 10 people in the seminar. Not a single JNU senior professor attended it, not a single Muslim, not a single Brahmins, not a single. So we were mostly Dalits. I was only OBC there. So Ambedkar was not there in any syllabus. Nor was Maulana Azad anywhere in the discourse. Now, who was there in the freedom struggle time? There was Gandhi in the syllabus, there was Jinnah. Even in Indian political thought, when I was a student of Indian political thought. But the problem all through was in terms of study, scholarship. The Muslim scholars' problem was how to negotiate with the idea of secularism both in theory and practice. To my understanding, since the Muslim scholar did not bother, mostly from Nehru to later JNU and several academics, foreign educated academics coming from the what we call in Dalit Bahujan studies the Dvijas, those who have cross thread, what sacred thread. They studied secularism from their point of view. It's not from the entire Indian point of view or from the Muslim point of view. No, but what happened is certainly by the time Sachar committee report was committee was constituted, by and large Muslims were stabilized with the secular state. There is no doubt. There was some kind of a stabilized existence, though in the rest of the Muslim world, neither the state nor the society had engaged with the idea of secularism at all. Because most of 56 Muslim countries were not in that secular domain. Maybe except, some Eastern Muslim countries like Indonesia and Malaysia, to some extent, Singapore and so on. But from thereafter, the Indian state within the same constitution began to be what I broadly theoretically call spiritualized or religionizing the state by the Hindu ideological force. When the state was religionizing, religionizing is not a proper concept. What I say is spiritualizing. Then the state confrontation of the state was not with the Dalits, was not with the OBCs. In fact, they tried to co-opt the OBCs more and more from 2014 onwards. OBC became focused vote base. Muslims were the target of ideological transformation, if not, state attack. What is the transformation? That it is a transformation of assimilation. So the Muslim scholars appears to have been in thorough confusion what to do with this, how to go about it, how to handle the whole question of Muslim future, Muslim universities. I'll give you one concrete example. Recently, there is a governmental view which said that even Aligarh Muslim University or Jamia or other degree colleges which are run by minorities, including the Christians, cannot be in future be treated as minority institutions. There is a big conceptual problem, crisis there. There were the certain protections for minority institutions. There was fund flow. But once the Indian state says that we do not treat universities, not just, there are private 4 or 5 Christian universities in the country. Now, they are also given on the minority basis based on Christian colleges. Now, the best of the English medium colleges, St. Stephen's, St. Joseph, St. Mary, so on, all big colleges which the elite irrespective of all political ideologies, including Advani, Arun Shauri, Arun Jaitley, all of them studied in Christian missionary colleges. Now they all began to be now being told that you cannot call yourself minority. Now what does this imply? I don't know how it implies to Aligarh or Jamia. Here, of course, it is not essentially Muslim question related, Urdu related. You have to have Urdu knowledge to get a lecturer job or to become a student here. It doesn't say you have to be a Muslim. But minority institution, take for example, St. Stephen's of Delhi. St. Stephen's of Delhi was admitting up to 70% of students only Christians. It was not even giving reservation to SC/ST till the other day because it is defined as minority. Now, this crisis, who should understand this? Who should explain this? Who should overcome this? Do Muslim population, in general, people deal with it? Or do scholars deal with? Naturally, this question has to be dealt with by scholars to reposition the state position itself, if necessary, redefine themselves, their institutions, reorder their structures. Now, where is the scholarship? Now, therefore, my fear is there is a kind of a shock. This shock is natural. Not anybody will be in a shock because once a particular defined form of institution is redefined altogether differently. For example, the question of hijab. No school can allow a dress code without properly beyond outside the frame of defined dress code in a school. There was a huge debate. Now, which side people like me take on this question? Because we were believing in progress. We were believing in freedom of women. We were believing in and fighting for equality of man, woman in every sphere. Then, when Muslim men don't have such conditions of dress codes, only Muslim women have. When somebody, a state is saying something, should I support it or should I not? What do I do? Should we support this to our own women tomorrow if they define this something? Because what Muslim scholars have not studied is Shudra and Dalit women till 1920 were not supposed to wear upper garments. Jacket was not allowed to women in Kerala, Tamil Nadu, unless there was a massive movement. It was Periyar and Narayan Guru and Ayyankari. They broke, and the greatest breaking point in Tamil Nadu was a Nair woman openly came into street, into Brahmin Wada, and said, if you don't want me to wear an upper garment or a jacket, even put a unstitched cloth around my body, I will do this. She went and cut her breast in street as a protest. Now, if the Muslims say that our children will not go to school without hijab, and that has to be the condition, now if I accept, if the same Brahmanism says tomorrow Shudra women should not wear jacket again, what do I do? Because that was our fate. That was our system. Women, in my own childhood, my mother could never wear chappal to the feet because women were not supposed to wear, even while going to hard physical agrarian work. We had chappal at home. Not that we were very poor. So we were not Dalits. We were Shudras. We were middle caste. So if Brahmanism imposes the same thing, what happens to us? Therefore, I keep talking to Jia, and my friend Mohammed is here. Other sociologists have a major work now. Now, if Muslim scholars think that no, we look at only our insight, our selfhood, then your situation in the future will be very difficult, because the problem is even people like me cannot support you. This was a major problem. A lot of Muslim organizations are asking us, you support us. Then we are saying whether you support us or not. Now, what should we support? What is that you have written about us? Then I went on counting in history how many Shudra scholars, writers, known literates were there till 1840, when the first Shudra was educated in a school called Mahatma Jyotirao Phule. All Muslim men were educated. They were Arabic educated, Persian educated. All Muslim men. They were reading Quran. And we had nothing to do with reading and writing. All Shudras. What is the percentage of the population? Always it is 70% of Indian population. 70% of Indian population we belong to, we had no writing and reading till 1840. And I don't know, Madam, aap bolna hai, when was the first Muslim women became literate in India, if not If we say in Arab country, maybe, during Muhammad's time. Okay, yeah, Fatima say. Then that is again the same Pule time. Right? She was the teacher along with Savitribai Pule. If she was the first literate, then that is the same fate. So therefore, the question therefore is, Muslim scholars now have to study Indian society, not Brahmanism or so-called Hinduism. And what is Indian society? The Indian society is again in Shudra system. If you don't use caste categories, you can't study Indian society. If you simply use religion categories, you can't study Indian society. If you say Hinduism, Islam, Christianity, Buddhism, it is not a study of Indian society. It is a study of gods in which certain sections believe. Therefore, Jalalul has done a great job. Actually, all of you, those who are concerned about your future, must read this book. It is a highly philosophical book, reviewing the whole Indian literature before Islam came, much more concretely than Al-Biruni himself did. I was amazed when I read this book. It examined Rig Veda, it examined Bhagavad Gita, it examined in relation to, it is not condemnation, it is not just a talk, but it is a critical study of Indian evolution and Indian system from post-Vedic period to later period. Recently, when republished, he wrote another introduction to the book. So I think Indian sociologists have to study on two counts, both with the Muslim identity question, but with the Indian mass transformation question. Now that alone can keep the Indian state and Indian constitution alive, because all of you must study seriously Indian constitution. I would like to ask you, how many of you read Indian constitution as a full text?
I have read it at the time of CA education. And there are
Did you?
editions of Urdu. Yes.
Now, see, if I ask you how many of you read Quran, you all would raise hands, right? But it is important that you have to read Indian constitution as seriously as you read Quran. Because my fear is, if this constitution is changed, then it is not just your life. You have a Muslim organized society, the Shudra society, which produces food for this country. The entire agrarian labor, the entire agrarian mass will be pushed back for almost into medieval period. You may negotiate in some form. If the state agencies go to Arab countries put some conditions for interrelations and so on, you may have some space. But where is the Shudra country to negotiate for me?
They will capture the country, sir. They will capture the.
So the problem is, there is a common interest. There is a common interest of us and common interest of you. What is that common interest? The common interest is those of us who are educated, who are in research in the universities, those of us who have some food resource, some sustenance resource, stop eating belly full and stop sleeping whole night. You understand what I'm saying? And perhaps for some time stop eating biryani at all so that you don't sleep at all. Because that is what Ambedkar did. That's how he saved. That's how he brought me to this university also. But for Ambedkar, I would not have been a literate. I would not have been a professor. I would not have come to Maulana Azad. I would not have studied Muslim history or nor my history or any history. But unfortunately, the Muslim scholarship has completely undermined a scholar who emerged from the ranks of whole human history, illiterate, untouchable societies spoiled, and became the greatest scholar of India during freedom struggle. He was PhD in economics. He was a lawyer of the highest order. Maulana Azad did not go to school in spite of his riches. He was born in Makkah, right? He was born in Makkah, and he could have gone any school in London. But this untouchable has studied in Oxford. He studied in London School of Economics, in Columbia, then acquired as many degrees as were available at that time in Euro-American, and wrote a constitution that saved you and that gave us life. It saved you people because you had life. But we had no life. And that constitution gave us life. So you start reading at least constitution and another book called Annihilation of Caste. And this book, The Shudras, written by a Muslim scholar. And then do comparative studies between Shudras and Muslim communities. Look at their equal man-woman equal life in the field. Look at their marriage systems. Look at their sociological existences. And then adopt some of them which are good and abandon. Give your systems which are evolved in a written history throughout Prophet Muhammad's life and thereafter, and building up Muslim empires. You give them, but you have to study their life. So that is only solution. I think Indian Constitution will alone can keep the state making itself a religious institution. Thank you.
So, thank you, Professor Kancha Ilaya, for this wonderful, thought-provoking valedictory address. Meanwhile, our registrar, Professor Ishtiaq Ahmed sir, has joined us. I request Dr. K.M. Ziauddin to welcome our registrar with bouquet and memento. I request Abbas to bring the memento and bouquet. So, I request Professor Ishtiaq Ahmed sir to come on the podium to say a few words about this. So,
Thank you very much. First of all, I congratulate our colleague Dr. Ziauddin for and his department, his entire team for organizing such an important and meaningful deliberations, and especially inviting renowned scholar like Professor Kancha Ilaya Sahab to this program, to this university. His speech was really thought-provoking. As usual, we have on many occasions we have heard, and whenever we listen to him, he reminds our responsibility that we have altogether forgotten in the course of our studies or our duties that we are supposed to do. We are really thankful to you, sir, for making various remarkable points. That is very essential for us, especially when we are debating the constitution, we are debating various issues that is related to the survival of various communities. I'm very thankful to you for guiding us and giving us peace of mind and giving us some thoughts that we can take up. I am also delighted to see that a good number of students and research scholars studying at Maulana Azad National Urdu University have gathered to participate in this deliberation. Especially, I hope that they have come for Professor Kanchai Layya Sahib and Professor Mustafa Sahib. Both of them are known for their contribution, and I do hope that their support, their guidance, their visit and deliberation to Maulana Azad National Urdu University shall continue. With this, I'm thankful to our team, our department, and especially Dr. Ziauddin and other colleagues. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Registrar. Now we have our chief guest, Professor Talib Muhammad Talib. Let me quickly introduce Professor Muhammad Talib, the chief guest of this session. Professor Muhammad Talib is working at the University of Oxford, UK. He holds MA and PhD from Jamia Millia Islamia, New Delhi. His expertise lies in the anthropology of Islam, with a specific focus on the Sufi groups and madrasas. Professor Muhammad Talib critically examines the landscape of social science scholarship on Islam in the contemporary world, especially post 9/11. In current research work, Madrasa in the Recent History, an alternative view between anthropology and international relations, is comprehensive critical examination of the state of social science scholarship on Islam in the contemporary world after 9/11. Having dedicated over 2 decades to the field of academia, Professor Muhammad Talib initially served as a professor of sociology at Jamia Millia Islamia, New Delhi from 1979 to 2001. In 2002, he further expanded his intellectual horizons by joining Oxford University, UK, as a Sultan bin Abdul Aziz Fellow in the Anthropology of Muslim Societies at the prestigious Oxford Centre for Islamic Studies. His commitment to academic excellence is evident through his role at Institute of Social and Cultural Anthropology, University of Oxford. With a unique experience, knowledge, and critical perspective, Professor Muhammad Talib has acquired the unique identity in the exploration of diverse dimensions of Islam and Muslim communities in the today's interconnected world. With this I brief introduction, I request since our Professor Muhammad Talib is trying to connect, he is not getting connected. So I request on his behalf, Dr. K.M. Ziauddin to present his brief to the audience.
Thank you, Hilal. आप में से कई लोग you must be happy, you must be also sad that Professor Talib is not able to join us. Meanwhile, he was sending me a brief note that in case if there is any technical glitch, you please read my brief note. And he has promised that his 1 hour lecture will be held on behalf of the department sometime at the convenience of Professor Talib. Professor Talib is one person who has mentored dozens and dozens of students at Jamia Millia Islamia and across the country. At the moment, we do not have him with us, but his one-page brief about in kind of tribute for Professor Imtiaz Ahmed in this seminar is sent to me. I'll read Remembering Professor Imtiaz Ahmed by Muhammad Talib. It is such a great warming occasion that Professor Imtiaz Ahmed's students and associates have gathered together to celebrate and further reflect upon themes around Muslims in India, especially foregrounding aspects with the mainstream sociology, which mainstream sociology missed out in the studies on caste in India. To be writing this note on Professor Imtiaz Ahmed in the past tense, it's emotionally unsettling. For the last 4 decades, he was a permanent fixture symbolizing an endearing teacher scholar for a scores of student batches, some of whom joined the ranks of responsible thinkers, teachers, writers in various public institutions in India and abroad. I remember him as someone who was a natural mentor on his students, to his students and junior colleagues who would initiate them into becoming key players in pursuing scholarship on Muslims in India. As a student at Jamia Millia Islamia in 1978, I had just finished Masters in Sociology. I recall meeting Professor Imtiaz Ahmad at JNU, whose volume on caste and stratification among Muslims in India was making impressive rounds. Then it was almost opening a door on the horizon of the existing scholarship on Indian Muslims when he wrote that a portrayal of the collective life of Muslims in India could scarcely be based on the textual normative constructs in religious literature. As a fresh MS student, I never expected he would meet me as his own student. He wanted us to organize a colloquium on the studies on Muslims in the subcontinent at the sociology department at Jamia Millia Islamia. With great effort, I could barely produce a single paged note for the colloquium explaining why the dominant perspective in the studies differed between India and Pakistan. My phone memory of the day as I finished the note, Professor Imtiaz Ahmad stood up with his chair and gave a pat on my back. Later, he would encourage me to contribute as a research assistant a description of Muharram for his volume on ritual religion among Muslims in India. He had a rare talent to encourage young scholars to overcome their hesitation in settling out on their intellectual journey. Under the guidance of a deeply human tutor, he was able to draw out the dormant talent of a scholar into undertaking an intellectual task with confidence. When Professor Ahmad was conceiving the volume on divorce and marriage among Muslims, he asked me if I had some thoughts on the subject. I told him that I know of a Muslim intellectual who wrote a 30-page letter to his Islamic scholar wife explaining as an alim about his reasons and the manner of divorce. The wife in question, an alima, wrote back an equally lengthy letter disagreeing with husband's stated Islamic logic. I told Professor Imtiaz Ahmad that the two letters were not sufficient to write a respectable article for his volume. His short reply, just engage with the two letters, using the sociological tools to highlight the process. This is how I gained entry into his volume on divorce and marriage among Muslims in India, a book compiled written by Professor Ahmad. Professor Imtiaz Ahmad represented an entire generation of responsible academics who were committed to their students as if this was the educational input into creating active citizens. Then, in the decade 1970s and 1970s, 80s, without the backup for familiar technological tools, in scholarly craft, Professor Imtiaz Ahmad could venture beyond the boundaries of the received knowledge and gently found through opening new doors in the given universe of scholarship. Professor Ahmad was not a lone crusader. His academic leadership qualities were evident in the 4 volumes he edited on Muslims in India. Professor Imtiaz Ahmad will be remembered for all the hurt he shared with his students and young colleagues. He truly loved each one of them, and if you had known him as a teacher, a mentor, an academic guide, you knew you were connected to him in an endearing way. When his time came to a close, he carried himself with dignity, strength, and full of love for those whom he had fostered with intellectual empathy and care. The robust community of scholars he helped create miss his present study, and that is how miss his presence dearly. And this is what Professor Muhammad Talif wanted to share with all the August gathering today. On behalf of Professor Ali, I'm happy to share this writer. He was my mentor, and at the end of the last life of Professor Imtiaz Ahmad, I could also find some memorable time to learn from Imtiaz Ahmad. That makes that, and I think the whole message was all through discussed in the last 2 days, and we'll be carrying these messages into the years to come to research on Muslim studies. Thank you, Professor Muhammad Talib, for sending at least your short notes for all of us.
Thank you, Zia sir, for reading out the brief of Professor Talib to the audience and guests. Now we have with us Professor Mujtaba Hussain, guest of honor. Let me quickly introduce to you today's guest of honor, Professor Mujtaba Hussain. Professor Mujtaba Hussain is a well-read sociology scholar He obtained his master's degree in sociology from Patna University. He started his career as a lecturer at Bhagalpur University and later became reader and professor at Patna University before superannuation. His work goes beyond the classroom. He has written 3 books in Hindi and one in English, showing his deep understanding of sociology and how it relates to the Indian society. His writings, published by Bihar Granth Academy and Oriental Black Swan, are widely appreciated. What is even more commendable is his effort to make his work accessible to broader audience. His book on sociological theories is being translated into Urdu, making it available to more people. Professor Mujtaba Hussain Sir's research studies on the topics like agrarian structure of Bihar contribute significantly to our understanding. His dedication again extends to studying and publishing a report on third gender group in Jharkhand, highlighting his commitment to inclusivity. With this brief introduction, I now request Professor Mujtaba Hussain Sir, the guest of honor for today's session, for his remarks.
Honorable Chairperson, Professor Sugupta Sahin sir, Madam, Professor Kanchayalaya, Dr. Zia, and my brothers and sisters. I'll not take much of your time. I have written, I'll just request Yatasam to distribute my written. I'll not take that much of time what I've written, but definitely since I was coming to the Urdu University, my mother tongue is Bengali. I have read in English and Hindi, but I wanted to write in Urdu. And so my title of that piece is The Targeted Minority and Its Response. I'm happy that Dr. Kancha Ilaiya elaborated on some of the points that I have raised. I don't want to say many things on the condition of the Muslims today. In fact, Muslims have become second-class citizens in India today. I have quoted Noam Chomsky, who wrote and spoke that Muslims in India are in a situation of siege. I simply tell you one thing, that one of the RSS celebrated gurus, Guru Golwalkar, in his book, We and Our Nation Defined, said, those who have come from outside, meaning thereby the Muslims, should completely assimilate themselves with the dominant mainstream. And they should live here so long the dominant stream wants, and they should leave India the moment they want to leave them. At the first outset, I will just try to say that my framework is any society is comprised of many groups, not only classes. The fault lines can be any. Every society has a history, and history is an important part of the social structure. No matter however we want, we cannot set our history. We have to learn from our history. The second thing, every society has a political system, and I agree with C. Wright Mills that politics is the most important aspect of society. Economy counts, culture counts, and lastly, every country, every society has a social current, a mizaj of its own. Whatever I have learned by reading sociology, by interacting with numerous people, Indian society is not exclusive, not sectarian. It is accommodative it is inclusive, it is a great civilization, it's a great society. People in history have wanted to make it like sectarian. There was a Sasank, there was Salisu, there was even Firoz Tughlaq. And Aurangzeb, despite being a very perfect gentleman, was a sectarian because of his Sifi guru or Sifi saint, whom he followed. Now, every society changes because of dialectics and dynamics. And every society changes in a framework of earlier the tribal society, then the slave society, then the feudal society, then the capital society, and then socialist society. Right now, India is a capital society. The Western countries are definitely late capitalists. We are just limping towards that stage. Now, what happened when the Europeans made a mercantile revolution? The Muslims could not cope with that. But Muslims were at great heights from 7th century AD to 15th century AD. Muslims controlled and Muslim ruled over Spain. And in this 800 years, Spain was the most important power in Europe. It excelled in culture, it excelled in economy, it excelled in political life. But somehow or other, what happened, that when the Sultanate Usmania came to power, they were at their zenith of power. They didn't look forward, rather they looked backward. It was a tragedy. They were very powerful. Ideologically, they revived 500 years old Khilafat system. There was printing press in Europe. That printing press revolutionized the whole Europe. But this Sultanate Usmania prevented, stopped the printing press for 400 years. Muslims all over the world went back for 400 years. This is the only one aspect of the picture. On the other aspect, there were many people who were progressive, advanced. Salim III, the Turk ruler, was a very progressive person. He introduced printing press. Muhammad Ali in Egypt introduced modern institutions. Ismail in Egypt introduced modern institutions. Just in your neighbor, this Karnataka, there was Tipu Sultan. Tulari Qureshi, the historian, she has written, he opened a Navy college in Bangalore. He introduced rockets in his army. He introduced and he started not only male colleges, male schools, but also female schools. So I think that Islam has been in a continuous dialectics between tradition and modernity. In India, when the Britishers came, the Hindu upper caste experienced a renaissance. I am happy that Professor Kancha Ilayya said there was a written rule in Tamil Nadu that the lower caste will not wear clothes. Written rule. Narayan Guru and all other people, even in Bombay, Maharashtra, in Pune, Jyotiba Phule made a very conscious effort to bring all people. Fatima was there. Her brother Usman Sheikh was there. She opened a school in Jalgaon for women of Muslim women. So my submission is that right now the Muslims in India are targeted. But do you think everything is bad? No. Just your neighborhood CDPP organization is there. They have published a very good book, Citizenship. There are Aligarh Muslim University. In the rankings, they are fifth in India. Jamia Millia Islamia. They are also doing very good. I would like giving this Manu to do wonderful things in future. You come along. Urdu is a very good language, very rich language. You remember when there was COVID-19, all other languages were talking of social distance, samajik duri. It was only Urdu which used the term jismani fasla, the right term for a right thing. It was the greatness of Urdu. I have always liked Urdu. I have always been fascinated by Urdu. But I say that there were two trends when there was a renaissance of India among the upper caste Hindus in India. One was secular, progressive, inclusive, led by Ram Mohan Rai, led by Keshav Chand Sen, and other was regressive, reactionary, led by Bankim Chand Chatterjee, led by Taranath Basu. So right now, what is happening? That the progressives, they started Pune Sarvajanik Sabha. They started even Congress. Baba Sahib has criticized Congress that they were a group of the power seekers. But Congress also did good things. Before Baba Sahib started the Dalit movement, Congress started the Dalit movement, although it could not be successful because of the upper caste leadership. So out of these two trends, why the revivalist? Why this reactionary? Why this regressive regime has come up and targeted you? Because of three things. I think this is my submission, that one is liberalization in itself is reactionary. Because liberalization, globalization, these capitalist formations, they know that there will be progress, but only for some, and regress for the many. Maitreyi Ghatak, the professor in London School of Economics, he published a book, he published an article that in these years, GDP has grown in the last 20 years or so. In India, GDP has taken from 17th position, it has come up to 15th position. But as far as GDP per capita is concerned, it has moved only 2 stages ahead. From 61st position, it has come to 59th position. Liberalization cannot ameliorate the poor, the backward, the Dalit, the Muslims. I do say that the Muslims are not in as bad conditions as the Dalits are. There are at least 7 billionaires among the Muslims. The second richest person in India is a Muslim who has the dignity of being called that he is the most gracious Dan Data of India. Hassan Premji, he is helping 12 schools in 12 states. The second cause is that in India, because of the movement of the backwards, because of the movements of the Dalits, the upper caste became threatened. Francine Frankel said there is a gradual revolution, that they have captured power in 1977 in Delhi. Christoph Jefferlo said it's a silent revolution. The whole politics of India turned into a binary of Mandal and Mandir. The Muslims are not the real targets. The real targets are the backwards. The real targets are the Dalits. Muslims are only a scapegoat, because if the Muslims are targeted, the whole Hindu mass would become united behind the Sangha Parivar. So you have to remember, the third cause is that in the last 20 years or 30 years or so, what has happened in India is that this development process, this process is not doing good to many people. I perfectly agree. So my write-up, if you read, is not more with the problem that Muslims have become so and so, but with the response we have. what we can do. Politically, we have to collaborate with the Dalits and the backwards. I'm sorry to say that we Muslims in general do not give respect to our Dalit brothers. Most of the Muslim mohallas are just side by side with the Dalit mohallas, because the upper caste Hindus do not allow the Dalits to live with them. But even then, we don't have that kind of relations with the Dalits. I would request Professor Kancha Ilaiya to just see the movement of the backwards from the 70s to almost even today. Lalu Yadav, Mulayam Singh Yadav, all these persons, the ways the movement, and in that movement, Muslims were there. Even today, Muslims are there, and Muslims have written, Muslim scholars have written about the Dalits, Muslim scholars have written about the backwards. So what is to be done? Economically, I say that Muslims have to come into business. अरे ऊपर वाले की बाद में देख लेंगे. See downwards. We have to be number one in the hide and skin industry, into this gems and jewelry industry. Muslims have been thrown out in Surat. Again, capture it. You have to come up in the engineering industries. You have to come up in these jewelry industries. Bengal industry is totally monopolized by the Marwaris. All the workforce is the Muslim workforce. Muslim women are working there in Firozabad, in scores. Capture the trade of the bangles. Earn as much as possible. Capture at least 5% GDP of India. Culturally, I have written, you might be heard. In South India, I don't know what is the reason, but there is much of hijab than in North India. I don't know what's the reason. Complete freedom to women has to be given. They have to come up. The this one, Aditya, one character is a Muslim lady. There are almost 56 women in the Chandrayaan mission. Muslim women in the Chandrayaan mission. So go for every Muslim child, and for that matter, every Dalit child, every backward child has to have a computer, has to have a laptop in his hands. Even if we have to starve, even if we do not have rotis in our stomach, give them the education, the best possible education. In cultural terms, and as far as education is concerned, the madrasas are not going to be the substitute for modern technical education. This is the age of artificial intelligence. Someday you might hear your mother talking on phone, and you come immediately. See, not your mother, but the artificial intelligence copying your mother. In this age of artificial intelligence, madrasas cannot do everything. You have to open modern institutions. You have to open modern colleges. You have to open just modern institutions, technical institutions. One thing, today environment, the ecology is threatening us. Every mosque should have greenery. Every mosque should have the chirping of the birds. We must preserve greenery around us. We must protect the ecology, the environment for the sake of humanity. If humanity would be there, only then we can come up. Only then the Dalits can come up. Only then women can come up. Only then backwards can come up. I say, and I humbly remind Professor Kancha Ilaiya that the task for the backwards, it is the time for the backwards to lead the movement, and the Muslims, I hope and I trust that the Muslims will be always with you, always with the Dalit struggle, and as Phule Sahib showed, as Baba Sahib showed, that there has to be consolidation of all the Kamerus, all the laboring forces. I may have hurt your sentiments by going against the main current, going against the mainstream, because you still Muslim women, Muslim men in general are thinking that no, our traditions can do. There has been a continuous struggle between the forces of modernity and forces of tradition. I simply pray to you that let modernity come, and along with modernity we can just have our religion, we can just protect and sponsor our faith, and there is no contradiction between this religion and science. So let us just celebrate science, let us go ahead, let us march ahead. The Muslims will always march along with the backwards, march along with the Dalits, and our women folk will also march. And I just can assure Kancha Ilaya Sahib that in future you might see that the Muslim women are not lagging behind any of the women sections in India. Let there be a future bright, prosperous in India in future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Mujtaba Hussain, sir, for your critical remarks. Now we have with us the chairperson of this session, Professor Shugupta Shaheen, ma'am. She is the professor of English language and literature and is also the officer on special duty with the Vice Chancellor. I now request the ma'am for his concluding remarks.
Good evening, Professor Kancha Sahab, Professor Mujtaba Hussain, Zia, Professor Zia, and all other dignitaries present here today. I cannot speak like Professor Kancha who's Professor Mujtaba Hussain from a social sciences perspective. I represent the humanities department. So my perspective would be more a kind of a humanitarian approach to the theme that is under discussion. When we study humanities or literature under humanities, we talk about human being because that is what humanity or that is what society or that is what sociology studies. That is human being. We study the be and we study the ing. And from the linguistic and English perspective, we study the be, that is the human, that is to exist, to be, and plus the ing, which is the present progressive of evolving, existing of the being that is human. So that is a term that we have always been using, maybe categorically without understanding what we are saying when we are saying human being, or rather being human. Isn't it? So that is, we are not just a human being, we are also need to be being human. That is practice humanity, and that is what I'm sure sociology also studies. And Muslims also come under the category of human being. And being in terms of being a present progressive term, human beings or Muslims are all the time evolving. And the study that is under discussion today is a study that is always evolving and would always be a part of sociology department and also need to be studied upon. In order to study again Muslims in a university like this, which is like studying the self, I'm sure studying the self usually requires objectivity, but it cannot be without subjectivity. When we are talking about the self in a university like this, we are discussing Muslims, naturally it has to be combined with both objectivity and subjectivity, because we cannot study the self without, no matter how objective it tried to be, there is subjectivity involved. So there is with this subjectivity that we study about ourselves, because unless and until we understand the self, it is difficult to understand the other, which is very important for the self. Going by, the questions, the topics, the essays that have been presented here in terms of syncretic assimilation of the Muslims, I would like to just take some pointers, some markers from what we see in our everyday day-to-day life. It is more a matter of culture than a matter of religion when we see people around us trying to assimilate with the cultural modes, cultural motives of the place that they have migrated to or they are residing in. The sari I'm wearing is not a Muslim dress. I'm sure you all know. The Bengalis use sindoor, which is not, again, a Muslim marker. The Pakistanis wear a sindoor, which is not a Muslim marker. So these are, symbols that we have appropriate to mingle assimilate with the local population. When you appropriate particular cultural symbol apart, your belief, your faith are totally different from one another. And I think this is what the Bhakti saints and the Sufi saints try to do when they try to reach out to the people using the local language in terms of creating a kind of echo or trying to reach out to them in the local language. So I would, I would like to read out one or two Dakhini songs here where the local or the other is used to reach out for assimilation. So it doesn't naturally mean that when you are referring to the other in order to assert yourself, you are less secure or you are unsure about yourself. So, Kanhaiya, yaad hai kuch hamari, kahun kya tere bhulne ki मैं वारी. So it's, it doesn't mean that you are trying to let go of your own beliefs when you are talking about or referring to using the other motive. सुन ले अरज मेरी राम रे, सुध बिसरा गयो राम रे, तिरछी नजरिया से मारी कटरिया, ले गयो सुख आराम रे. So using the local language to reach out and trying to create a kind of reach. That is what these Bhakti and I think Sufi saints try to do, to try to assimilate the local population towards themselves. Each have tried their own, and this is one of the things that the Dakhni or the Sufi poets have tried to do. One more thing that has been referred to both Professor Kanchalaya and Professor Mustafa Hussain, I would like to draw your attention to is the question of hijab. I think trying to make Muslim women give up the hijab would be an infringement of their rights. Because I think that is the liberty. If they're comfortable, okay, so be it. Because it is up to them to decide how much is too little, or as the West decide how little is too little. So I don't think anyone has to tell them that, what they should or they should not do. They have that kind of, I think, liberty to decide for themselves what gives them that kind of a comfort zone in order to assert themselves, in order to reach out. So I would assure you that I don't think women wearing the hijab are anywhere lesser than women not wearing the hijab. That just because I don't wear doesn't that, I don't think that they should wear. It is their right to decide. And I think that they should be given that right to decide what they should or what they should not. I would also use this opportunity regarding Professor Kanchalaya. Whatever he has said today, I would like to quote here Bacon's quotation from Of Studies. He says, some books are to be tasted, some books are to be swallowed, some books are to be chewed and digested. And I think Professor Kanchalaya's lecture today was meant to be chewed and digested for all of us. And also, I would like to say that he was a founding member in the initial stages of the university, and we wanted to honor him on Foundation Day, but somehow we could not reach out to him. So I use this opportunity to present a letter of appreciation and honor him for his services to MANUU. Please, I request. Thank you.
This is a great pleasure. I never expected this one. Long duty waited for you.
And I have also informed the Vice Chancellor and
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Professor Shumta Chahan ma'am, for your concluding remarks. Although we have presented the bouquet and the mementos to our convener of this seminar, but we haven't presented the same to our coordinator, Dr. Said Meosar. So I request Professor Shugupta Shahin ma'am to present the bouquet and memento to our coordinator of the seminar, Dr. Said Mills. Now, with this, we are concluding this session. Now, I call upon the stage our colleague, Dr. Vivekananda Naik, Associate Professor in the Department of Sociology, to present the vote of thanks to the guests and audience.
गुड आफ्टरनून फ्रेंड्स। लगभग 15-16 साल मैं एकेडमिक में जुड़ा हूं, लेकिन इतना हेवी टाइप ऑफ डिबेट मैंने नहीं सुना था। और मैं कैसे वोट ऑफ थैंक्स दूं, मेरे ब्रेन से ही चला गया, क्योंकि तीनों जो बताए, और अच्छा हुआ कि जियासा पढ़ लिए इतना स्वीट वॉइस में, तो अच्छा लगा हमको। अदरवाइज मेरे ब्रेन से ही ऊपर उड़ रहा था कि हाउ दो, और सारे चीज जो इश्यू था ये लेक्चर में मूवमेंट के बारे में था, कैसे सोशल चेंज, सोशल ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन, ये सारे बात आया था। बट इट इज ए वेरी डिफिकल्ट टू डाइजेस्ट ऑल्सो। अगर ये इसके बारे में सोचेंगे तो इट इज वेरी डिफिकल्ट टू डाइजेस्ट एंड ऑल्सो वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट टू, ये डिसिप्लिन का ऊपर अक्सर करना चाहिए, स्टडी करना चाहिए। सो फ्रेंड्स, 2 दिन का सेमिनार बहुत अच्छा रहा, एंड द इशू, द टॉपिक हम लोग चुने थे, इट इज ऑल्सो वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट। और पहले तो टॉपिक को हम कितना ऊपर डिपार्टमेंट में डिबेट किए, मैं पर्सनली इन्वॉल्व था इसमें, एंड उसका बाद एक बार डेट पोस्टपोन भी हो गया। देन ऑल्सो आवर जो कंट्रीब्यूटर थे उन लोग को तकलीफ झेल कर आए। सो ये सेमिनार सक्सेस होने के लिए 3 चीज हम लोग को बेसिकली देखते हैं, जो मैं CCC का हिसाब से देखता हूं। एक तो कोऑपरेशन, कोऑर्डिनेशन एंड कंट्रीब्यूशन, और ये तीनों चीज में हमारा सेमिनार में कहां भी कमी नहीं रहा। और एक सेमिनार सक्सेस हो गया ये पता चलता है 5 चीज से। एक तो खाने का चीज, आदमी सेमिनार में जाता है तो अच्छा, एंड मानू इज फेमस फॉर बिरयानी। आई थिंक सो ऑल हैव एंजॉयड यस्टरडे फूड, एंड टुडे इट वाज अ कल्चरल शॉक फॉर मी, एंड इट वाज एक्सीलेंट फूड, नो वन कैन डिनाई इट। सेकंड थिंग अबाउट द accommodation, our university accommodation is highly बहुत अच्छा है, बहुत अच्छा हमारा यूनिवर्सिटी का अकोमोडेशन। थैंक्स टू रजिस्टर साहब, वो हर टाइम अच्छा एकोमोडेशन, हमारा जो गेस्ट हाउस का लोग है वो अच्छा ट्रीट करते हैं। द थर्ड थिंग अबाउट द फीस, एक बगल में यूनिवर्सिटी हमको बुलाए थे, पेपर भेजो पेपर भेजो, हमने भेज दिया। उसका बाद वो लिंक भेज रहे हैं कि पैसा जमा करो। कितना पैसा? 3,500। देन बीइंग एसोसिएट प्रोफेसर में 3,500 देकर मैं प्रेजेंट करूं और एक सर्टिफिकेट लाऊं, मेरे लिए सॉरी, एंड ही वाज माय क्लोज फ्रेंड। सबसे दुख का बात वही है। एंड देखें कि यहाँ जो सेमिनार हो रहा है फ्री ऑफ कॉस्ट में हो रहा है। तो इन टर्म्स ऑफ फीस ऑल्सो मैं आई थिंक सो मानू एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन को धन्यवाद देना चाहता हूँ। एंड एकेडमिक कंट्रीब्यूशन, जो जिसके लिए ये जो माहौल बनता है, जिस थीम में हम लोग काम करते हैं, आई थिंक सो एक्सीलेंट। कल शुरू से लेकर अभी लास्ट तक सबसे अच्छा स्पीकर चुने, इसलिए हमारे कोऑर्डिनेटर और जो हेड ऑफ द डिपार्टमेंट, सीनियर फैकल्टी इसके लिए जिम्मेदार है। एंड द फिफ्थ थिंग इज अबाउट द किड्स। द फाइल इन लोग को बनाए हैं, इतना बढ़िया है, खूबसूरत, अच्छे लोग खूब प्यारे से चुने हैं, ठीक है, इतना अच्छा लगा हमको देखकर, ठीक है। सो और सबसे अच्छा लगा कि ये जो सेमिनार में सबका इन्वॉल्वमेंट रहा, सबका इन्वॉल्वमेंट, क्योंकि कभी भी हमारा वाइस चांसलर साहब कॉल आए, फुल टाइम बैठे और फुल हम लोग को गाइडेंस करते रहे कैसे सेमिनार होना चाहिए। ये है फाइनेंशियल लाइबिलिटी, पढ़ा नहीं कुछ, इतना बढ़िया से यूनिवर्सिटी पैसा दे रहा है, बाकी इंस्टीट्यूशन में तो डिबेट डिस्कशन खत्म है, पैसा लाओ, सर्टिफिकेट ले लो जाओ. So I thanks Honorable Vice Chancellor for providing all the opportunity to us and equally distributing. सारे डिपार्टमेंट को बराबर दे रहे हैं. नहीं तो कुछ जगह पे कुछ लोग हैं और कुछ लोग ऐसे ही पड़े हुए हैं और सब दिखा दे रहे, जाओ भाई यूजीसी से ले. एंड थैंक्स टू आवर रजिस्टर साहब, आज आए. देखिए थोड़ा टाइम के लिए भी आए, वो टाइम निकाल कर आए, कल बाहर थे, आए और इक्वली हम लोग को रेस्पेक्ट दिए, इक्वली पार्टिसिपेशन किए, सबको ब्लेसिंग किए. देन अगेन थैंक्स टू रजिस्टर साहब फॉर दिस. एंड थैंक्स टू आवर डीन मैम, ऑलवेज उनका स्माइलिंग में, कभी भी उनका पास जाइए, किसी भी प्रॉब्लम लेकर जाइए, ऑलवेज सी हेल्प्स अस. एंड थैंक्स टू आवर चीफ गेस्ट प्रोफेसर अरविंदर मैडम, होल डे आज भी थी, अभी एचयू में प्रोग्राम है इसलिए चले गई, काल भी थी. एंड इतना बढ़िया स्पीकर है एंड टीचर है. बेसिकली some of might have lucky to get such type of teacher. And then first memorial lecture, Professor Vivek Kumar, who is my guide also. Luckily I got him. And wonderful lecture. Kal jo lecture tha. And thanks to Professor Vivek Kumar. And also Professor Sabina Banu, Professor Imtiaz Hussain ka धर्मपत्नी, वो भी थी. अचानक अभी वो हैदराबाद प्रोग्राम में गई है, बट उनका जो प्रेजेंस है हम लोग को जान ले आया कि हम लोग पूरा पार्टिसिपेशन के मिले, वो सबसे अच्छा लगा. देन थैंक्स टू सौगुप्ता मैडम, ओएसडी आवर एंड बिलोव्ड मैडम. कल मैडम रात को डिनर कर रहे थे, बोलना नहीं चाहिए. वन ऑफ द पार्टिसिपेंट सेड कि माइंड चेंज नहीं हुई है, इतना बड़ा पावर पाने का बाद भी वो चेंज नहीं हुई है, वो स्माइल का साथ ही बात करती है. ये आप प्यार है सचमुच, और हम चाहते हैं आप बहुत ऊपर जाए, सो लो देश आपको आपके लिए गर्व करेगा. एंड संजय साहब, आप क्या बताएं, हमारा ब्रेन चौक कर दिया आपने. इट वॉज ए वंडरफुल लेक्चर रियली. अभी भी उत्तर प्रदेश में जाइए तो घोड़े में बैठकर दलित शादी करने के लिए जा नहीं पा रहा. ये आज के दिन पर शर्म का बात है. जो जहां पे मतलब मर्सिडीज BMW में लोग शादी में जाते हैं, वहां घोड़े में बैठकर जाने में भी दिक्कत हो रहा है आज के दिन पर. ये भी कास्ट सिस्टम का एक माइंडसेट है. एंड मुस्तफा साहब, हुसैन साहब, आपका लेक्चर वंडरफुल था. कल सॉरी आपको बिना जो शुगर वाला चाय हम पिला नहीं पाए, आई एम सॉरी. अगला बार हम अपना सिस्टम तैयारी करेंगे, क्योंकि हमारा जो वेन्यू है ये भी लाइब्रेरी में है जहां पे हम चाय नहीं बना सकते हैं. सो वी आर सॉरी, बट आपका जो बात रखे इसलिए थैंक यू सो मच. एंड कल इट वाज आल्सो वेरी गुड मूवमेंट फॉर प्रोफेसर जी नागराजू साहब, हेड ऑफ द डिपार्टमेंट सोशियोलॉजी का HU से आए थे. And they honored also our HOD. So both the department has a very good link, and he is also very close friend of Professor P.H. Muhammad. And Asim Prakash ji, today he delivered a wonderful lecture. And Saida Murtaza ma'am, Saida Murtaza also, and Ranu Jain madam, whole day today, yesterday also he was present here. अरशद साहब दिल्ली से आए हैं, बढ़िया, आज का पेपर बढ़िया था. एंड आवर बिलव्ड नाजुल्ला साहब एंड साजिया मैडम, थैंक यू, आप और हमारा यूनिवर्सिटी में आइए. एंड शाहिद राजा जी एंड अफरोज जी, थैंक यू सो मच. हर टाइम एंगेज रखे, सबको क्वेश्चन पूछते गए, किसी को नहीं छोड़े ये दोनों. एंड IMC team director and technical staff, engineering staff, and Basish ji, Javed ji, librarian, लाइब्रेरी का सारे स्टाफ को धन्यवाद. हर टाइम प्यार से हम लोग को बोले कि चाबी है ना, नहीं ये नहीं है, तो प्यार से, क्योंकि आज से टाइम भी बदला है. एंड CIT डायरेक्टर प्रोफेसर वहीद साहब, टीम, एंड दीपक साहब, एंड ऑल द चेयर जितने लोग हमारा यूनिवर्सिटी का भी थे, बाहर का भी थे, वो लोग टाइम से सबको मतलब समाप्त कर रहे थे। रैपोर्टियर, आई थिंक सो ये अच्छा होगा, अगला पब्लिकेशन के लिए फायदा रहेगा। एंड डीन ऑफिस ऑलवेज कॉपरेट अस, अनुज जी, विजय जी। एंड गेस्ट हाउस, आप हर टाइम, हर आदमी जानते हैं गेस्ट हाउस का स्टाफ जो है, राजक जी हर टाइम मदद किए, शिक्षा डिपार्टमेंट को मदद किए। एंड स्टूडेंट आउटसाइड ऑफ डिपार्टमेंट, मतलब हमारा डिपार्टमेंट छोड़कर, जैसे सोशल वर्क का वहां वो लड़का बैठा हुआ है, एंड आई थिंक सो सारे लोग को, और CSEIP स्टाफ है, ताहा साहब, एंड आवर डिपार्टमेंट स्टाफ, थैंक यू सो मच। एंड जितने जो कमिटी मेंबर थे, एक बार खड़ा हो जाइए, एक बार आप लोग के लिए ताली बनता है, जितना जो कमिटी मेंबर और स्टूडेंट थे, जो रिसर्च स्कॉलर सारे। थैंक यू, आप लोग को बहुत धन्यवाद, यहाँ से सीखने के लिए मिलता है, हम लोग तो टीचर है आगे को। थैंक यू सो मच, एंड थैंक्स टू HOD एंड ऑल्सो कोऑर्डिनेटर, थैंक यू सो मच।
थैंक यू विवेक। एंड आखिर में सबको हंसाते हुए जाने के लिए, दूल्हा खुद की तारीफ करे बड़ी मुश्किल होता है, लेकिन वो हिम्मत वाले थे। थैंक यू एवरीवन एंड जॉइनिंग फॉर दिस। नाउ वी मे हैव नेशनल एंथम टू प्ले।
Now I request the technical team to play the national anthem. So, I request all the audience, if they want to have the group photo, they can come and have the group.
And lastly, thanks to Dr. Vivekananda Nayak. He's such a great friend, a great colleague, and very generous heart he has. And he is very committed academician. सबसे पहले ये डिपार्टमेंट में आते हैं अर्ली मॉर्निंग. This wonderful person. Thank you, Vivek, for delivering this vote of thanks. Thank you, sir. Certificates. सर्टिफिकेट सारे लोग तो होंगे नहीं, थोड़े बहुत होंगे, पता नहीं है, जो भी है सर्टिफिकेट लेके जाए, जितना भी है पेपर प्रेजेंट है. थैंक यू सर.
12
Wonderful. Yeah, presenters may collect their certificates. It is available outside the auditorium with the volunteers. To say hello to you, sir. Yeah.
All the best for
निकाल दो. इसका चार्ज भी होगा क्या?
अच्छा. इधर से तुम लोग को नहीं देख सक रहा था, मैं बात करते हुए, ये नहीं आ रहा था. चलिए,
थैंक यू सो मच मैम. शादी आ जाओ.
long time